house.
I looked up, I was like, oh my God, what changed?
Good evening and welcome to the Westborough Select Board meeting called here on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. Being past 6 o'clock, I call the meeting to order. And just to note that this meeting will be recorded by Westborough TV. I would ask that all that are able to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So next on our agenda is open forum, and seeing nobody here, and still ahead of schedule on the meeting, I will move things around, and I am going to move up item 7 to right now, which is a request to sign the election warrant for November, and for our assistant town clerk to come forward and bring that up for us. Do you want to tell us what we're doing here?
So I have the warrant for the election, the state election, which is going to take place on Tuesday, November 8th.
And our job tonight is that?
To sign it, and then we'll have it posted for the residents of Westborough.
Okay, and I think we have a motion.
I move to approve the request of the town clerk to sign the November 2022 election warrant.
I'll second that.
Okay, any comments or questions? If not, all those in favor? It's 4-0, 4 being present, and we need to sign that in front of you, so we will do that. Always the fun part
Four
of the
copies.
meeting, so it's good to do it early.
Still don't have document signing music.
Yeah.
Glad you put those little tabs there.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
Watching us closely.
Wow, I've never been observed quite so closely. Sorry, that's my phone. Shut up. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, moving forward, we'll go to the town manager's report.
Thank you. The banner poles on West Main Street, we just wanted to make a note to the public that those were damaged last year. And so in looking into that, the repair that was needed, it was determined that the existing poles are not strong enough to sustain weather. And so rather than fix them, we would do a replacement of them, and so we're looking into what that cost would be. So it hasn't been available, I think, since February, and it continues to not be available for a banner. The flags on the light poles, following the request of the Veterans Advisory Board to expand their Hometown Hero flag program, we've reached out to the vendor where we purchased those poles to look at installing banner hangers on the other side of the pole, so they would be on both sides, and so we're waiting for a quote on that as well. The BWALD implementation, I come before you with a plan for the BWALD implementation, which included putting requests on the capital plan beginning in FY24. So you'll see that coming on the upcoming capital plan. We continue to intend to apply for grant money, but given the scope of the capital plan and how we've expanded it to include all capital requests, it would still be a capital request through the Capital Expenditure Planning Committee. The board meeting dates, we've updated the board meeting dates for the months of October and November. So this is the only meeting tonight that we'll have in October. And then our next meeting will be on Wednesday, November 2nd. And then our regular meeting on November 22nd when we're planning the tax classification hearing. The special town meeting is Monday, October 17th, starting at 7 o'clock at the Westborough High School. Main Street Trick or Treat is planned for October 25th from 4 to 7. So that'll be trick or treating for any residents at municipal buildings downtown, as well as any participating businesses. And then early voting will take place at Town Hall from Saturday, October 22nd to Friday, November 4th, except on Sundays. The Public Works Department welcomed Dave Daniels to our maintenance team and Jack Clapp to our highway team. The building conditions assessments are in progress for the Harvey Building and the Country Club. Our grant-funded culvert asset management plan, which assessed the condition of over 200 town culverts, was finalized. We're wrapping up several months of significant and physically hard work that addressed longstanding icing issues on various sidewalks and roads. There's been multiple water leaks recently repaired, and thanks to the Westborough Police Department for providing alert lockdown information related to ALICE training. The fire department has received grants from FEMA's Assistance to Firefighters program for $63,636 to replace the department's breathing air compressor and fill station, and $43,920 from Massachusetts State 911 for dispatch training. The Worcester County District Attorney's Office is presenting a team award to Massachusetts Fire District 14, of which Westborough is regionally part of, for their success conducting a wide area search in the town of Hopkinton on July 17th. At this incident, a person who had been missing for 24 hours was located. Westborough firefighter Barry Sullivan was part of this technical rescue and will be recognized on October 13th at 2 p.m. at the Milford Police Department. The fire chief recently completed 72 hours of training through the Massachusetts Inspector General's office and received his designation as a certified public purchasing official. In the planning department, 180-182 Turnpike Road, which is the Hyundai auto dealership, site plan review has been open. They're still working through several issues, which are detailed in the report, which will be posted online. There's also an application for a housing project at 190-212 Oak Street, the site plan review. The planning board has asked the applicant to consider transferring the density of the project to the applicant's other site at Village Commons at 1 Gleason in the transit-oriented village. This option would leave the Oak Street property as open space transferred to the town. The applicant is still working on his options for this. The police department has provided active shooter training in addition to the DPW training that I mentioned. They also provided training to the Forbes staff on October 5th, and then the senior center will receive active shooter training and stop the bleed training on November 9th. And the fire department's working through scheduling additional stop the bleed training. And then we have a couple more municipal buildings that need ALICE training. The West Main Street Trick or Treat, which I already mentioned. For the police department, the engagement team's putting together a kid-friendly haunted house in the garage bay at the police headquarters. Looking forward to. And then the chief wanted to note that the department's been extremely busy and wants to commend their staff for their hard work.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question about the trick or treat?
Yes, please.
Really important stuff here. Will there be sort of a map or location? I think that they did that last year.
They did do it last year. I haven't seen it yet this year. Do you know when that's coming out?
But generally, that
We'll
will be
send
through
it
the
out.
rec department.
The recreation department will, yeah, they'll have to send something out so people know where the stops
Yeah,
are.
okay,
Yep.
super, thanks.
Great, so it's 6:12. I'm going to move us to item 11, which is our meeting minutes approval of September 27th, 2022. So I'd ask for a motion on that.
Motion to approve the minutes of September 27, 2022.
Second?
Okay, any comments, questions, or updates? If not, all those in favor? It's 4-0 for being present. And why don't we move to item 10, if we can, with it, which is a request for appointment to Tremaine El Amin as an adult member to the Youth Commission.
I don't have it up, sorry.
Sorry.
Would you like me to make that
Yeah,
motion?
motion, yeah.
Yeah, I move to appoint Tremaine El Amin as an adult member of the Youth Commission for a term to expire June 30, 2025.
Second.
And we had all the materials here, unbelievable resume, I thought, so
Love it.
very happy to appoint. And this is completing the adult membership on the commission, as was noted in our notes. So any other comments or questions?
Just with thanks
Just
for
great,
stepping up.
great appreciation for getting involved.
Great. All those in favor? It's 4-0 for being present. Should have taken more time there.
Talk slower.
Do you want to do the Rotary Club license?
Sure,
I don't know if
let's
they're
do that one. So we're going to move to item 6 on the agenda, amend license agreement for downtown lighting with the Rotary Club. Christie?
So the Rotary Club had came before you in June and asked to sign a license agreement to put the lights up at the Rotary. At the time, the duration of rights was specified in the agreement as being November 15th until February 15th. I did receive an email from them last week requesting that they be able to put the lights up in October, just based on the availability of the vendor. And so they were just looking for they were looking for that November 15th date to be earlier. It doesn't currently specify when lights would be turned on. I know their intent is not to turn them on at this point, but just to get them up. And so I don't know if Shelby has more to.
Yeah, so I can speak as a member of the Rotary Club and actually a member of that subcommittee. So the plan would be, there would be probably a testing of lights, certainly before the 27th, which would be the Sunday after Thanksgiving, when the Winter Lights Festival and the stroll happens. But they would not be turned on before then. So it's right around that same time. I don't have the specific date of what that turn-on date, but it's right around the 27th. Certainly at the Rotary, I don't know about the polls, it would be aligned at that same time.
That answered my question. So it's really more to hang the
It's-
lights, not to light
It's a
the
total
lights.
of vendor availability and timing of planning because of the tree canopy at the Rotary. It just requires lots of coordination with police detail and safety and all of that.
Just a question?
Yep.
Is it 100% of the lights taken down every year and 100% get put back up, or
Yeah,
it is?
so,
It's every-
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's like a,
Didn't know if anything is left over.
no,
year
it's
to
like a
year.
lease arrangement, for lack of a better word to say, because then they're maintained and, if they're damaged, the vendor comes
Sure.
back out to repair them.
Okay, thank you.
Alan, do you have other questions?
No
Okay.
questions?
Motion? Shelby?
Is it okay to
Yeah.
make? Okay. So I move to authorize the town manager to execute an amendment to the license agreement between the Rotary Club of Westborough and the town of Westborough that includes changing the duration of rights to begin on,
I don't have the date, so you could probably pick
October
Tomorrow.
13.
Yep.
And permits the lights to be lit beginning November 15, 2022 until February 15, 2023.
Seconded?
Okay, any other questions or comments? Not all those in favor? 4-0 for being present. Thank you for that. Okay, being 6:16, we do have the hearing for Class 2 dealer's license, Westborough Mobile. And Christie or Kim, help me here. I think because we just continued this, we don't have to open the meeting. Is that correct? Or we have to open this?
Well, I think because you had already opened it, but I thought that you did close it. Or no, I'm sorry, this one you would have continued. Yeah, so it continues to be open.
Okay, perfect. So welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. Again, I'm Lauren Sparks, and I represent Jack.
Could I actually just ask you to speak a little bit closer to the
Sure,
mic, just so,
yes.
yep.
I'm Lauren Sparks, and I represent Jack Azar and Westborough Mobile in this proceeding. At the last meeting date, we requested and were granted a continuance so that we could go before the Registry of Motor Vehicles to deal with the complaint that had been filed with them We did meet with them last week, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, and they issued a memorandum of agreement. I have copies here for everyone's review if you're interested, which I can pass out now.
Do we
I
have?
think we actually do,
those,
we
yep.
have a copy, but thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Great. So as the board can see, the corrective action that is required is a spot check, and the date by which that has to happen is October 17th. I suspect that's because currently there's nothing to check because he's not operating a Class 2 facility at the moment. But we can assure the board that when that spot check happens, that all of the requirements that go along with a Class 2 license will be met.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Alan?
Yeah, I guess I've, one question. When this board issued the suspension originally, the requirements of that suspension were the logbook be turned in. At our last meeting, which was weeks into the suspension, you stood before the board and said, I have the logbook right here. I'm concerned that, given that our suspension was, really the result of violations, that the terms and conditions of the suspension weren't followed.
Which terms and conditions?
Turning in the logbook.
The logbook was provided.
Well, not within the time frame required by the suspension.
The effective date of the suspension, Mr. Azar turned in an old logbook, and when we followed up to ask for the current logbook, he said that it did not exist, that the logbook he had turned in was the only logbook that he had, and then when we came to the last meeting that you were present at, you had a new logbook.
Okay, well, I apologize for that, and at the last meeting, I had just been retained just prior to the meeting, so I was not aware of that particular history. But it's my understanding that the logbook that we did turn in is compliant with the requirements of the RMV. And certainly, I have stressed to my client the importance of maintaining that and keeping it on the premises at all times, regardless of whether or not the dealership is open or operating.
Any following? No. Anything else from the board?
I don't know, I'm actually kind of, this is a difficult situation that we had before us. I'm glad there was follow-through on the part of the RMV, and that the MOA was issued. But what the MOA doesn't speak to is a long history of issues. Unfortunately, with this local business owner, Mr. Azar, and I'm hesitant to allow the Class 2 business to continue operation because of the history. And these are in what I would consider flagrant disregard for what the expectations are of being, holding that license. If we had a restaurant that had a liquor license, using a comparison, and there were multiple violations that were reported or noted in any way, I would feel the same way. So this is, just trying to use apples and oranges, but something similar in the fruit family. My concern with just moving forward and saying, well, we recognize the MOA and release, remove the suspension and allow the business to continue in that regard, is the precedent it sets for anyone else in the same line of business. Because if I were another dealer, I would be wondering, what's my leeway in being able to kind of push the limit and not follow the rules. And these meetings are public, so while I certainly appreciate that you were just had been retained that day, and fully respect that relationship was very new. These meetings are public, they're televised, and so Mr. Azar's attestation before this board in the logbook that Ms. Williams and Mr. Edinburgh just described is known to all, right? All here and certainly you know. And so, I'm certainly very sensitive to what it takes to be a small business owner, and the gravity of what's before us. But I don't know how this board continues to allow that the Class 2 license to be issued at this time.
I share your hesitancy on ending the suspension and continuing the license. I drive through the Rotary multiple times a day on the way to and from home, driving my kids around to and from my office. I still see vehicles parked on the sidewalk. At the hearing, the minimization of the fact that he was operating without permits for hot work and the storage of flammable materials, saying, oh, it's just a technical thing. At that hearing, I pointed out that was unpermitted hot works that caused a fire in Boston that resulted in the death of 2 firefighters. More recently, a hot works permit expired in Worcester, and 3 days later, there was a fire at the construction for the Doherty High School, a 3-alarm fire. And so I'm concerned that the lack of attention to detail, even going back to our initial issues in 2019, I don't see a change in pattern in improving in the operation of the business. And again, it's a very valid point that this sets a precedent that, this board won't enforce the rules and will give indefinite leeway time and time again. And I'm not comfortable with that at all.
If I may ask a question?
Please.
So earlier today, Christy, you sent out a police report, and I just wanted to make sure that I understood that this report was dated today. Is that correct?
Right, there's 2 reports that were sent based on compliance checks during the suspension, so one of them was dated today.
Can you
Yeah.
point to that where that is in our packet, just a page
It's actually,
reference?
and I believe for email to us
I think it
later,
was also added to the packet.
Okay.
was added to the packet.
Yes.
So I just, this is a very serious matter, and I would just say that having a suspension for 2 months is a significant amount of time. But I do look at the events that happened earlier today, and I do question whether or not you're in compliance even right now. Because according to this police report, there were 2 vehicles found on the property. One, according to the police officer, was clearly unregistered, which my understanding of the RMV laws or rules are that that is acceptable. But a second vehicle was also found on the lot, which could not be determined whether or not if it was unregistered or not. And to me, that means until it's proven otherwise, it really is unregistered. I'm just surprised to see that come in this late in the game after 2 months of suspension, that we're still dealing with this type of issue on the lot today. And I don't know if there's anything else that I can glean or understand from that report.
Anything, Christie?
I was just going to say, specifically, they were looking for vehicles, or the number of unregistered vehicles. They typically check the book, but obviously the book was in our office, so.
Right.
So I guess to go, any comments on that?
Yes, I can comment on that. It's my understanding, and Mr. Azar would represent to the board tonight, that The 2 vehicles currently on his lot are of course not for sale because he is not able to sell used vehicles at this time. They're there for repairs. We do have the owner of one of the vehicles here tonight. It's a Maserati. When it was dropped off to the location, the registration was active, and unfortunately it has since expired. I've explained to Jack that it is his obligation as somebody running a repair shop to make sure that he follows up on registration when vehicles are on the lot for a period of time, even if they're for repairs and not to be sold. It's my understanding that the vehicle is a Maserati and the part is taking a significant time to come in, hence why it has been there since August. But it is not for sale. And as for the Nebraska plated vehicle, the consumer who left it there for repairs has represented that it is registered, but we do not have documentation of that. So I'm not comfortable stating that it's registered, but I can say that based on that representation when it was dropped off, that was how Jack proceeded. And certainly since my law firm has become involved, we are working with Jack to develop appropriate policies and procedures to ensure that things like this don't happen and we're not responding to violations, but we are preventing them. And I don't think that that has happened with the past. I am familiar with the history. I recognize it's a long one, and I hope that the board will also consider that he has, at least this time around, or since I've come on board, he has done everything he can to comply with the requests of the agencies and licensing authorities involved, and including the voluntary, at our request, he did agree to suspend or request to be able to continue the hearing, and in doing so lost another month of business, which was a difficult decision, but one that I advised him to make because I believed it showed his good faith. And I, as an officer of the court, I will represent that he has been trying very hard, and we recognize the difficult position the board is in. And I don't think anyone looking at the history here would think that the board was just letting things go when it comes to Westborough Mobile over the past several years.
Yep.
So you just mentioned Nebraska, a vehicle with Nebraska plates?
I believe it was Nebraska.
Alberta.
Okay, because the report we have is plates from Alberta, Canada. So are there 3 unregistered vehicles on the lot?
That may have been my mistake. I wasn't on the lot. There are 2 vehicles there, one of which could not be, the registration of which could not be confirmed.
I asked the detective to help me see if the car is registered or not, and he said he doesn't know.
And I've explained since then that it is not the detective's responsibility to do that, and we understand that.
And so even though the vehicles were there for repair and not for sale, the regulations state as a repair shop, only 1 unregistered vehicle on the lot, and that was also a condition of the suspension. And I suspect, because I've gotten correspondence from residents in the last period saying, have you seen how many vehicles without plates are on the lot? That there have been multiple times where there's been more than 1 unregistered vehicle on the lot. And so I don't, and yes, there's a lack of trust because, we were told in 2019 that he would adhere to all the rules going forward. And it took less than 6 months for him not to renew his hot works permit. And if you don't renew the permit, you don't get inspections. If you don't get inspections, you don't get violations. And so I find it difficult to move forward.
Ian,
Yes.
if I can ask a question? I'm not sure, Christie, if this is a question for you or town council or who, but what are our options? I mean, I know that we can terminate the suspension. I'm wondering if we can continue this suspension. I'm imagining there's revocation of the license. What are our options as a board?
I would say those are the 3. You could either I guess it's been about 2 months now, the suspension. You could either restore it and let the business know that they're on thin ice, or you could continue the suspension for a period based on the information we've been hearing here, or the third one is revocation. I will just add that if the board ultimately decides to revoke, we would want to get clear on the record what the reasons were, including things from 2019, if that's, part of it.
Can I ask to Mr. Azar, through you, the attorney, your thoughts in terms of what you've heard from us tonight and the new report? So we have your thoughts and what you're looking for. You're looking for us to terminate that suspension with strict controls in place, which I think is similar to what the registry has done. Continue the suspension to put things in place. I think on our attorney's counsel that we just received, I don't know that we would go to revocation tonight. That is a step that we'd want to look into further. I don't think I'd ask for that from this board tonight, because I think from what we heard is reasons that have not been fully vetted on our side. I think if we did that, we want to make sure that we did it with a full understanding and whatever. But so I actually put it back to you and your thoughts.
Sure. On behalf of Westborough Mobile, we are asking that the license be restored with the understanding that the town is going to be keeping a close watch, and certainly, I recognize the board's concerns. I represent in my job, a number of municipalities, and I have felt the frustration that you are feeling on behalf of some of those clients. But I can assure you that he recognizes the seriousness, and if the board is to reinstate it, he's opening himself up to being checked on every day. And will do his utmost with my guidance and my firm's guidance to ensure that he's complying.
Thank you.
So, just sort of as a follow-up to Patrick's last question, around options, I certainly would be interested in maybe some further guidance from council. I don't know that we get that here, but, through Christie. But I just, for me, the trust is broken. And I guess I would ask, as an extension of the options, thank you. If one's license is revoked in this case, is there a period in which they cannot reapply? Like, do they have to wait for, I thought I saw something in our packet, can they reapply in 12 months, or what is that process?
Yeah, that would be under the statutes, and there isn't anything that I'm aware of, or perhaps regulations, but in my opinion, there isn't. That there is, to use liquor license as an example again, there is if someone is denied a transfer somewhere,
Sure.
There's a year where they can't get it, but I'm not aware of anything like that here. So
Okay, so theoretically, we could revoke, and then Mr. Azar could come back in, a month and reapply,
as far as I
or
know,
next day, or what have you. Okay, no, I think that's important, for the board to understand. And Ms. Sparks, Mr. Azar, I think that, the ongoing monitoring, it's, we have collectively, I can't imagine what a distraction this is as a business owner, but the hours that the town has put in, that is, I just see this as the gerbil wheel that never stops spinning. And so for that, my trust and my patience in this process is razor thin, and I'm much more inclined to revoke the license. But I'm wondering if it's beneficial to Mr. Azar if the suspension is restored, giving him time to truly come into compliance and demonstrate that he's got his business affairs in order and has time to do that. Because if we end the suspension, effective whatever date, I just don't see how you undo years of violations and feel that you're ready to do that. So it may be protective of the business, of a local business, to suspend it for a further period of time. I would ask the board for their thoughts on that.
So I think you answered at the end there. I was unsure what you were asking.
Sorry.
So you're saying your thing is continuing the suspension
Yes.
for longer. I guess my take here is it's been 2 months. We see what we have from the RMV. Actually was surprised by what they brought back, by some of the stuff that we had heard from the state police. But I think in my view, it's, to some of the things you said, Shelby, was to remove the suspension, but to note that it is something we're going to watch closely. And this is, again, sorry, in my mind, it's kind of, this is your last chance. I mean, this comes back, it's a revocation of the license. We can't deal with this anymore. This has been multiple boards of selectmen and now select boards here that have gone through this. I do want to give you a chance. This is something we're trying to do with businesses. We want you to be successful in town. You've been here for a long time, as you noted. It pains me a little bit that you're here in front of us. I want to give you that chance, but for me, I would be in favor of removing the suspension, but to note that you're back in front of us again. This is for a revocation. There's no more suspensions that are happening here. This would be a revocation. That's my view.
In my view is, that's what we told him before. So in 2019, there were 54 violations. Some serious enough that they posed an immediate threat to health and safety of the employees and customers and the surrounding community, that the business was shut down for a period of time until corrective actions could be taken. At the time, we heard that he had been in the business for 24 years and nothing like this had happened before, and he was a good member of the community, and yet he was unaware that he needed waste oil permits from the state and didn't even have those in place. At the time, the vehicle inspection reports indicated at least one vehicle that had expired tags, license plates, on a vehicle, on a different make and model of vehicle. And I noted then, and I don't think I brought this up at the hearing this time, but I noted then that that's criminal and that it was discretion that criminal charges weren't filed at the time, that's serious. And so now we issue a suspension with very simple terms. Turn in the book within, we gave him days, several days, to make sure the book was in order, and turn it in. The book is turned in. There are gaps in time. So town staff spends time chasing down, saying, are you sure this is the book? There's a huge gap in time. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's the only book out there. And then comes back at a subsequent meeting, and there's a brand new book sitting on the desk. And which means he either was untruthful to town staff, saying, we had the right book, or he misled the state trooper about the status of the book. And we're not in compliance. And we told him in 2019, if this comes back before the board, it'll be revocation. And we told him we were going to not revoke his license, but monitor him closely. And the response we got back was that he was being singled out and it was unfair. no recognition of the severity of the number of violations. And, you know, for me, you know, we can continue the suspension till things are definitely in order, or we can revoke the license, and if and when he's ready to actually run the business as required by the full scope of the law, which isn't just the number of unregistered vehicles on the lot, it's the care and condition and the presentability and the safety, general safety. I think those are the two options that we have for us, but to once again say, you know, well, we'll cancel the suspension and watch closely, we've been doing that. And in doing that, we find he's not in compliance, even with the suspension order. And to me, that's, you know, unacceptable.
If I may, Ian?
Yep.
So I will just share that coming into this meeting tonight, I was fully expecting, actually, earlier today, I was fully expecting to reinstate your license, but after I got the report from the police officer today, I was really saddened because I really would like to see your business thrive. I'd really like to see you move forward from this. I have not been on the previous boards that were mentioned earlier tonight. I'm relatively new to the board, but to see the history of what's gone on here, it makes me very concerned. And, you know, personally, I'll just say, I don't think we should revoke the license at this point. I think we should continue to suspend it until we see that he's on 100% full compliance. You can't come and say, well, we're not sure about this car, or we know about this car and this car over here. And I would also just suggest, and I'm not sure what the process is that the RMV puts forward, but you know, anytime you take a car on the lot for repair work, maybe make sure that the registration is valid. And if you're getting near the time when that registration is going to expire, you might want to get in touch with that owner of that vehicle to re-up his registration to make sure that it's compliant, because it's months in some cases that these things have been expired. I would, if I'm driving down the road with an expired registration, I'm going to get pulled over, I'm going to get fined, and there should be no difference here. So I would like to give you one more chance. Revocation is a pretty, you know, I think serious event, and I'd rather not go down that path yet. But I think you get the sense of the temperature of the board here that we're just tired of dealing with this, for lack of better words. So that's my thoughts.
So I'll just bring up a question. So if we continue the suspension, what are we looking for in the continuation? Maybe our attorney
In terms of
help us
time frame or
No,
elements?
in terms of what elements are we looking to that would make us remove the suspension? I know we had the report today, but maybe some counsel from counsel.
Well, I guess, I mean, I know there were violations mentioned, we heard them again, that didn't have anything to do with the registration, sort of condition of the place. Maybe another consideration is that, you know, renewal time would be coming up as well. I believe that's January 1 for this license, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So that might be one option to, if you want to continue it that long, or into December perhaps, and then when renewal time comes, then the board, you know, look at whether they're comfortable with the condition of the place and think it's, you know, worth giving a new license for 23 to see how it goes. That'd be one option. But yeah, I would say that if the board wanted to continue the suspension, it would be based on the violations beforehand. The RMV, of course, found violations too. They didn't take any serious action on it. They said they would come back and check, but they certainly found violations of those statutes about maintaining the book. So that would be another, you know, another reason.
Do we know when the RMV is coming back? I'm sorry, was there a date that they're coming
Well,
back?
it said.
Said the
no,
17th?
The 17th of October. So my question would be, would the town, would it be part of our process, depending upon the finding here, to then notify the RMV that obviously they wouldn't be inspecting, but if the suspension were to still be in place, that I mean, I would imagine we don't,
I
they
guess
can't expect what, a business that's not operating in that manner.
if they're, I don't know exactly what the RMB or the state trooper is going to be looking for, but if they're looking to see the books and the plates, being back initially, then obviously that's not going to be the case. So it'll probably make sense to notify them.
Yeah, we would notify them and follow up with them. In your packet is the general requirements for dealer inspection. So there's multiple things in here that
Yeah.
the business could move forward with without having the actual dealer license in place or active, including, signage,
Display area.
display areas, things
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
So Christie, what are your thoughts? This is a question from me personally.
I do think the last time that you brought mobile in 2019, that was because we were about to do renewals. The board has delegated to me the ability to do renewals, but I did bring mobile in given some of the issues that we had found. So that's coming up quickly. I think that you could terminate the suspension at this point, and then we would be back here quickly, regardless of violation at renewal time, before the board to discuss whether or not you could appropriately issue a 2023 license.
If can I,
Yes.
if we were to reverse the suspension and allow the license to move forward in January when he reapplies, would that allow for the RMV and state police and our own police to go in and check it under full operation again to make sure everything is compliant at that point? Because the book would be there, plates would be there, all those things that would be looked for would be in place. How often are licenses renewed for this type of license?
Annually.
Annually.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think just to note is we've learned some new things. We've had training now for our police department from the state police. So I think we've improved our processes as well, which is a good thing. This is where we're looking at it. I think, I think, Patrick, where you were going with some of my thoughts here is if you were to remove the suspension tonight, there's a couple of months. I'm not saying a couple of months, you stay in compliance. It's like putting your kid on probation for a couple of months. No, it goes longer than that, but I think it's something that with the checks from the RMV and for us, it's, if we're going to continue it, and it's going to continue business, we want to have it in full business and check and make sure that they're in compliance with that. I understand the feelings from the board too, about the suspension, the piece with the suspension. It's, to me, if we continue the suspension tonight, I would think that it's a suspension and move to a revocation. We just got to put, sounds like what I'm hearing here, because I don't know what we can test in suspension. So my take here is remove the suspension and just say, this is it, and we're looking at it. Others are looking at it from the state side. And any further violations, this is a revocation. But, so that personally is my take here. Because we open it up and he's in full operation, we can check everything.
I think, given the timing of when the license renewal period, this current period ends and the renewal is just a handful of months away, on the one hand, I'm inclined to follow your logic, but what haunts me is the most recent report, the police report. So if I were your client, I would have made sure every single, I would have just been bending over backwards to make sure everything was spot perfect for this entire period. And it wasn't just one vehicle, it's two vehicles, and then it's like, well, we don't know where the registration is, and I just, and with all due respect, again, to the hardships of running, a business, I mean, last time your client was before us, it was, I do my very best. Well, there's criteria for holding a license, in the state, whatever it is, and I'm sorry, but maybe your best isn't in compliance with a license. So for us to just say, well, let's just give them a little more time, I'm just not, I can't get there. On the other hand, you know, I do see the value in, you know, microscopic checks, if you will, but the time and effort, and it's all because of someone is choosing not to operate in accordance with the law. That's what, this is a choice. You either follow the rules or you don't follow the rules. So I would like to make a motion to continue, I want to make sure to extend the suspension for a period of 45 days.
Second.
Okay, so the question I have is, in that suspension,
Yep.
are there things, if we vote for suspension, are there things that we're looking for the business to come into compliance with, which they won't have the book, so it's not some of the things we suspended for before. And I'm actually going to look to our attorney as well on this. So
Sure.
the suspension continues, but in essence, what are we looking for to
Yep.
bring them back that would remove that suspension at that time?
Sure. So, and definitely need some guidance here since I'm not a Class 2 expert. So one, I would say that there are no unregistered vehicles besides the one that's allowed. That's part of the, I believe, part of the repair business. And that, you know, that's part of inspections that can take place. And then the checklist we have for general requirements for dealer inspection, to me, that if any of those are violated during this period of time through some sort of inspection,
I guess he's
we-
not a dealer at this time, though, right? He wouldn't, because we've revoked,
So fair,
that's what
yep,
we've suspended,
yep.
is the dealer license, so there is no dealer.
So,
It's true, it
Yep.
would not be operating.
okay.
So technically, that list,
So maybe as part of this discussion, maybe the motion needs to be that he is coming into, with the intent of clearly wanting to maintain this license or renew it. You know, there's work that needs to be done to come into compliance, and it's not work that's going to happen overnight. I mean, adequate office space, providing a separate and exclusive entrance to your place of business. Again, I don't know the business other than getting gas there on occasion. You know, so I don't know, you know, there's signage required.
Adequate service records.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be done here, so, you know, I think so I would need help framing this motion, but I think it's to come into compliance with the items needed in order to have, you know, the suspension terminated that would allow you to become a Class 2, that allows you to maintain your Class 2 dealer's license.
and I guess, I don't have it in front of me
Yep.
tonight, but the things that led the board in early August to impose the suspension in the first place, just trying to recall if that was sort of, you know, condition of the premises sort of things.
Conditions with
Yes.
the premise of the issue. There were issues with the fire safety system, having incorrect fire extinguishers with gas pumps. He did not have, as I mentioned earlier, a hot works permit, nor a permit for the storage of flammable materials. So he was out of compliance there. There were issues with the number of vehicles on the lot and blocking multiple entrances that would make it difficult for emergency vehicles to access the building in case of emergency.
Okay,
And so there were, there were several issues, in addition to having too many unregistered vehicles on the lot and not having a current up-to-date compliant book.
Right.
Which was also the case.
right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Respectfully, I was just going to add that based on my review of the correspondence from the town, it's my understanding that the license was originally suspended due to the number of unregistered vehicles on the lot, and that following that, a number of other inspections ensued from various town boards and commissions, but that the original suspension that we're discussing here was based on the unregistered vehicles, and that suspension was extended voluntarily due to the failure to maintain logbook, and those are the two actual violations cited in the suspension. Understanding that there were other things found in the meantime, those are not expressly listed in the documentation. And I would just further add one other nuance, and I recognize that this is a legal argument and no one wants to hear that, but I'll just make it quickly. The part of the bylaw that requires property owners to only have one or fewer unregistered vehicles on the property is part of the general zoning bylaw and is not part of what is required for a Class 2 dealer license. Right now, he's not operating the business. He doesn't have any vehicles for sale on the lot. So there are no unregistered vehicles for sale. What he has potentially or allegedly violated, depending on that second car and whether it is in fact registered, is an unrelated part of the bylaw. So I'm just pointing that out to preserve it.
Sure.
And recognize that the board does not want excuses.
No, I mean,
No,
I think it's an important, element to share. I mean, I guess I would say again, to Patrick's point of, if I were driving an unregistered vehicle and we don't know what the disposition is of that second one, but for all intents and purposes, it seems that it's not registered, we would be fined, so I don't know if there are other matters not part of this hearing where there are violations that we need to be looking at, but I don't know if that's in our jurisdiction as it relates to what was just shared.
I just want to clarify what was said. The subsequent inspections happened prior to the hearing. So Mr. Azar we sent out the police department to do a compliance check related to the number of unregistered vehicles on the lot. And when we found that he was not in compliance with that, we sent other permitting departments based on the 2019 inspections and finding of this board stating that he needed to remain in compliance. So understanding that he was out of compliance, the extent to which he was out of compliance was found after we sent other permitting authorities. But to your question, we can certainly look into other things. I mean, I'll defer to I'll defer to town council, but my understanding is that if the board finds that this individual is not able to properly conduct the business, that the board does not have to issue the license.
Yeah, I mean, the licensing statute itself, that the board is supposed to find it's a proper person to operate the business, and there's a suitable location. I don't have the paraphrasing a little bit, but a suitable place to conduct the business, which I guess that's been part of the issue over the years as well. So, I mean, the board has the authority to, do any one of those three things we talked about.
I guess just going back, I think in seeing the timing, I still think of, I apologize, Alan.
No.
Sorry.
I'm sorry again.
The term of suspension, it basically gives a couple of months. We have to then renew this license, and to the points that were brought up before, that we have a list of all the things that have to happen, and if they're not there, by the time that we have to renew a Class 2 dealer's license, we don't renew the license. I think that from the discussions back and forth, I'm concerned that if we suspend or revoke, I think there's some questions on the legal premise that we're doing it at. My position would be to terminate it, watch it closely, assets come into full compliance, and if we don't see full compliance, we don't renew the license as of January 1st, but also to note that there have been some serious infractions here. And just, if it is all in compliance for January 1st and we decide to renew the license, that doesn't mean it's renewed for a year. This is serious stuff, and it comes out once, it's done. I mean, this is the end of the line here. And to me, we're noting it, end of the line. We're going to work with our attorney on this to make sure that it's an ironclad case that says, this is why we're revoking it, and I want to make sure that we as a town are protected if we go into that position. And we may need to do that. This is serious here, and you hear it from the board. My personal concern is that there's still some open items here. I want to make sure that if we go forward with this, that it's, that we have our protection, we have the case in front of us. So to me, it's, again, my place right here is to say, we terminate the suspension. We've done it for 2 months, but there's a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it. And if it's not done to our satisfaction, that license does not get reviewed January 1st, but also that if it does get renewed, because everything's in place, it doesn't mean that it stays renewed for long. If there's violations that happen, one violation that happens, it will be revoked.
If I may, Ian?
Yes.
So from my vantage point, there's two choices. There's certainly a motion on the table right now, and I'm not sure what that buys us. And follow me for a moment here. If we continue the suspension between now and what would be roughly November 22nd, it doesn't give us the ability to see him fully operate and make sure that it's operating. So and that really, and the second option is you revoke, and then in January it comes up and reapplies for license. So that begs the question: what are the requirements under our normal permitting process that he has to go through to make sure that he is in compliance? And in January, if he decides that he would want to reapply, would he not have to prove that he is in total compliance to all of those things that are required for this type of permit? So again, I don't understand. I'm struggling with the 45 days just because I don't think it buys us anything.
And we talk about what it means to be compliant. And granted, as I'm hearing Mass General law is vague on appropriate or suitability of location. But in the hearing in 2019, we made it, I thought, very clear that suitability of location meant that all bylaws, all health and safety rules and regulations for the premises would be adhered to. And come August of 2022, in addition to the direct, legal issues with respect to the book and the number of vehicles on the lot, there were again health and safety and other regulatory violations. And so I don't know how we have to be more clear. Okay? If someone drives by and sees a car parked on the sidewalk, that would be a violation. That would bring you back for revocation. If the driveways aren't clear so that a fire truck can get onto your premise or an ambulance can get onto your premise because you have too many vehicles on the lot to allow that to happen, that would be a violation. Any violation of fire code, building code, any state law or regulation would be a violation that would bring you back here. Zero, it's got to be absolute, we have to be clear, it has absolutely, positively zero tolerance. Because, frankly, I'm tired of spending town resources policing, literally and figuratively, a business that chooses not to follow the rules and take the steps necessary to do so. And it's unfair for the residents to carry that burden. It's his responsibility to operate in full compliance. Full stop. And that hasn't happened. And my conflict is, it didn't happen during the suspension. That there was any confusion about the book he turned in reeks of deception. Because there's no other reason. Why wouldn't you turn in a current, accurate book as required under the suspension, knowing that failure to do so would cause revocation? And he failed to do so. And so I understand that a 45-day suspension, we don't get to see him in operation and don't get to see him operate within the guidelines, but he didn't meet the requirements of the suspension. At some point, if this were a court of law, would that at least be contempt? Like, and I know we can, rescind the suspension and watch in December, and we'll be back here, right? And yes, he could very well be in full compliance when we have our hearing in December for his renewal, and we can decide to renew. But the last time, it took him less than 4 months to fail to get proper permits. And permits, that meant he went over a full year without inspection of his hot works equipment, his torches, and his acetylene and gas tanks, and other flammable materials.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Patrick, and Ellen, I'm sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. So Patrick, to your question about the 45 days, I'm not sure what it gains us. So it does provide a very short window of time for, if we were to approve that and then have that in, whatever the date was, late November, would give him very little technical time to come into compliance in time for renewal. I guess I would ask the board if that were 30 days for point of discussion, sends a message, allows, in addition to all that's been said here, and certainly that would be to November 11th or thereabouts, and, gives him a full almost 2 months to be in compliance and ready for that, renewal period with 0 mistakes. I hesitate to even put that out there because I'm not sure 30, 40, 60, I'm not sure the number quite honestly matters, 10 days, 5 days. Maybe it's 5 days. And I don't think the number really matters. I actually am very much in agreement with Alan that, it hasn't been fixed so far.
Right.
I think we're just going to be back here, and I think we're spinning our wheels.
I agree with you, and actually, I thought you'd go the other way.
Okay.
I didn't think you'd pull it in shorter. I thought you'd say longer. To me, the reason why I was saying that is 45 days enough to deal with all of the issues when he's going to come back for a new permit in January anyway? Why not revoke? Because it's serious enough, multiple offenses here that have led to this, and today we're still not sure if he's in compliance. So why would you allow that license to be suspended only for 45 days to give him roughly another 45 days before he has to reapply anyway and become compliant anyway? To me, there's no real point to doing that. If you revoked it now or if you suspended it all the way till the time he had to get the permit again, you're not allowing us the ability, I'll say us, the RMV, the state, et cetera, to go do the checks under normal operation. Right. If you repeal or rescind the suspension right now, they would be able to do that. And I think it comes down to those two decisions. You either revoke and he goes through the process and shows that he's compliant when he goes to reapply, or you leave it, you end the suspension and allow the RMV to look at it, and we can keep our eyes open what the RMV says, the state police, our own police say, and in January he comes back and re-permits himself. So those are the options.
Sorry, Patrick, if you're all set. I would just say, I'm just going back to what the counsel we got from our attorney that said, I'm not sure we're ready for revocation tonight because I don't think we have all of the legal stuff in place that we can make a motion to revoke tonight that will hold. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the language that I heard, that there's...
for obvious reasons, I'm always thinking, well, if the board does this, takes the license away, and we end up in court, what's the court going to ask? And, for starters, the court is going to want to see, kind of a enumeration. Not that there aren't things to base it on, but kind of enumeration on what the board based this decision on. Was it was it arbitrary, or did they, have lots of good reasons to do what they did? That's all I was really sort of getting at.
I understand.
Yeah. So I guess, back to Patrick's thing, I agree, I think we have two options. I think the options we have is the motion in front of us, which is Shelby's motion for 45 days. Or, to me, it's kind of removal of the suspension to move forward. What I'll do is, just because we've been at this for a while,
And we
and
do
looking at
another
timing
hearing.
of other stuff on the agenda, we have another public hearing that we're late for.
Yep.
So I'm going to move forward with the motion that's on the table that's been seconded, which was a suspension for 45 days. And ask for, Christie.
Just given the last suspension and the fact that the board needed to meet again, you might want to base it on a meeting date. So around 45 days would be your November 22nd meeting.
Right. Which is
Do you want to amend your
close to-
motion to make it the actual date? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes.
I would just ask that, I recognize that obviously there's a question of compliance with the unrelated part of the bylaw to the Class 2 dealership license, and that a number of violations were found in August. Does the board have any reason to believe that those violations have not been remedied? I have not viewed the police report, so I'm just wondering in what ways is he not in compliance today? So that we can immediately, if the board does vote to suspend, immediately remedy those.
Per the original suspension? Is that your question?
No, so was more in the police report or through the original note from the police report?
Because we can, if I understood correctly, we can only continue the suspension based on our original reason for that suspension, not the other offenses?
The health and safety and code violations were part of the reason for the suspension.
Okay, I thought
Because it
we said,
it wasn't a suitable place.
okay, I thought that we had said
No.
that it was, okay.
I mean,
Well, so-
the number of unregistered vehicles
Yeah, I mean-
triggered the
Right.
additional
Right,
Inspections.
inspections for
And
compliance
that all
because,
happened before your hearing.
right.
Okay,
and that was because in August, the conditions to avoid revocation wasn't just the book and the number of unregistered vehicles, it was the operation of the property and
But-
compliance with.
And I think the question was,
Inspector.
for Mr. Azar's attorney, was, are there any of those that are still unremedied that we know of that they
Well-
need to address if we suspend longer and we may not know that right now, we'll need to notify them to that request, but are there any more that are unremedied? I know we had notes that most of them were
Right,
remedied
right.
by that
Right. I
meeting,
think
but.
that the board's point is that the town's resources shouldn't have to chase compliance was one. Also, the RMV did recently acknowledge the noncompliance with the books, and those certainly remain unremedied, specific to the old book, which has several gaps in terms of information as well as time.
By old book, do you mean the 2021 logbook?
The book that we were given that was stated as being the current book until the last hearing. Yep.
Meaning, yeah, so, but that was the 2021 book, not the new book that then we subsequently.
Actually, it has dates going back to, I believe, 2017. So I don't know that it's a specific year.
Oh, okay. But just the.
Not the book that she provided, correct?
At the meeting, right.
Yep.
Is the book that was provided or subsequent to that meeting, is that book in compliance?
The information for the vehicles that are listed in there is complete, yes.
So I'll refer to that as the new book is complete. Okay.
Appears to
Thank
be
you.
complete.
No, just so we're all. So,
The reason that I'm asking this is because I don't want to come in here and make a representation that all of the violations have been remedied, because I have not gone there and looked myself, but it is my understanding, and my client would be willing to speak and represent to you, that any items that were given to him, he remedied. And Certainly, if his license is reinstated, someone could go check on that tomorrow. I mean, I don't think he'd be operating by tomorrow, but the board gets my point. The board would be able to determine pretty quickly whether, and I recognize that's putting the burden back on the board, and I am sorry for and sympathetic for that. But much of the work that I think has been contemplated as happening in the next 45 days, I believe it's been done. Or is that right, Jack? You can.
Yeah,
Can
I mean,
w-
I did everything I was asked for. Of course, during the pandemic, I did fall behind on updating the logbook, but due to short staff, but, I take everything seriously. I'm not as bad as I look. I'm sorry. I really try really hard to be up to date with everything, and I comply with everything the fire department asked for.
So every agency or commission that came to you in August, you took action?
I took action, and I'm in compliance with
That
everything.
is true. Yeah, and I think
Except for turning in the correct book.
the correct book, and, again, just, to me, I just go back to the 2 cars today unregistered. I just can't get past that. I mean, to me, that gives us opportunity, not opportunity, that's the wrong word, reason to move right to revocation of the license. So I even in my own motion, I'm on the fence because it doesn't, on the one hand, it doesn't give us that additional time period, as we've discussed here at length. But I would ask us, what more do we need? We've been dealing with this for years, that predates certainly as long as I've been in this seat, like tens of years.
So is your motion still to suspend, or is it to revoke?
No, I'm not, I mean, I'm not gonna, I mean, I think to council's, advice, I mean, I think that there are certainly some elements we would want to have before us to be clear on the reasons for revocation, and, a timeline, and, other important documentation that we would feel, is appropriate and necessary. So I'll leave my motion as it is, and when you're ready to call a vote, we'll go for it.
One
I
question,
mean,
though.
yeah, through the chair.
You did offer the prospect of shortening to
Mhm.
continue it.
I would be open to,
Our next meeting, that,
Yep.
per Christie's point, having it coincide with the meeting, our next meeting is November 2nd.
Oh, yep. So your next meeting is November 2nd or the 22nd, and I would recommend that you choose the day after.
Okay. Continue the suspension through
If you were going to continue the suspension, so that if you did need to have another hearing, you could have that hearing.
so, on November 2nd.
November 2nd's the meeting, so it would continue to November 3rd or
continue
November 20th.
Oh,
The suspension
I'm sorry,
would continue.
I'm sorry. Yes,
The day after one of our next.
I would be, I'm fine with that.
November 3rd.
Yep.
So 30 days instead of 60,
So-
instead of
Well, it
45.
would even be less, it's, I
It'd
don't
be
know.
22 days.
Thank you.
Does that give him time to do it?
Well, again, I think it's a little bit of, he doesn't have the license, so he doesn't have to be in compliance with the license until he has the license, right? I mean, that's kind of what I heard council say. But, to me, it gives him some breathing and a buffer space to say, I want to be ready for November 3rd, so I can get my license back. And I'm going to do everything I can so that, I can demonstrate what I've done, I can come with my proof, and I'm ready to go. And I didn't even have to do this because I don't even have the license yet. At least that's what I'm understanding. He doesn't have to be in compliance until he's,
Well, I
actually-
mean, one of the requirements is to have the, all the vehicles that are offered for sale in a particular spot.
Right.
And I know that was something the state trooper had an issue with
Sure.
at that time.
So-
He's not going to have vehicles on-site for sale
Right.
until he gets the
But he
license
could come with
back.
like a photo, like,
Right.
the
That-
time
that's-
period of here are all the days since we last all came together, and here's, here are the photos.
Or could be,
I'm just,
put my license in, this is the area that's gonna be just for the
That's
license
where,
sale. Make
that's
it
where I was
easy-
going.
Make it easy
Or
for
whatever.
me, and anybody in town to say,
Right,
here's the cars that are for sale, here's the cars that
Sure.
are for repair, as opposed to
right,
having them on the sidewalk, having them.
right,
whatever.
wherever, yeah. So I'd be fine to amend my motion to extend the suspension until November 3rd. I think, is that the right language? Extend the,
The suspension.
yes.
And I would second that.
Okay. All
With
those in favor? Oop,
Sorry, with the understanding we would hear this on the 2nd.
Yes.
Right, okay, just be clear.
Just really extending the hearing till the second.
Yep.
The suspension is continued to the third. All those in favor? Opposed? Just 3-1, the suspension continues until the third, with the hearing continued until the second. And I think, for the attorney to work with town manager's office, any questions you have, and we'll get that information to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for that.
Thank you.
If you're continuing the hearing, you have to continue it to a time.
Okay.
6:15. Unless we have something already on for 6:15. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next, and I apologize because we're late for this public hearing, so I would ask for a motion to open the public hearing for the request to transfer an all-alcohol liquor license at Westbrook Cook and Grain at 2 West Main Street.
So moved?
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor? Okay, so the public hearing is opened. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gregory DeMarcus. I'm an attorney with offices in Lynn. And to my right is Kaksa Patel. She's one of the purchasers of the Westborough Cork and Grain store here on 2 West Main Street. So I represent Baba Ramdev Inc., a corporation she has formed with her partner, Taral Naik, who's in the back, who's a very experienced operator, and they're purchasing Westborough Cork and Grain from TM&D Corporation. And they've set up a corporation. They're each 50/50 stockholders. They're borrowing money from Rockland Trust to purchase it, and the other funds are coming out of their pocket. They're going to keep the same store hours, the same type of business, but they are going to change the trade name. So they're going to change it from Westborough Cork and Grain to Westborough Liquors, and that's on the application. In fact, we're asking for that, approval of that tonight, together with the transfer, together with the change of manager to Coxa, and also for a pledge of the inventory and a pledge of the license in favor of Rockland Trust. This very smart young lady, she's got tip certified. Her husband is in the business, owns a 7-Eleven store that sells beer and wine. She's looking forward to working in Westborough. She's all excited. She's going to work. Mr. Naik is also going to work with her, and he's very experienced. And between the two of them, and perhaps they'll keep some of the employees there, they should run a very, very well-oiled and very good store. So, there's no seller financing. The financing's coming from Rockland Trust. They've entered into a lease with Westborough Properties LLC. So I think everything is in order.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the board or comments?
First of all, welcome to Westborough. So very excited. This has to be an exciting time for you. Really, it would be nice to see that location. I'm very supportive of this, what's before us. And it would be really excited to see some vibrancy and activity in that location. And I wish you all the best.
Anything else on the board? Comments?
Um,
Go ahead.
One question about I understand the pledge of the inventory, that there's a monetary value there for Rockland Trust. Does the pledge of the license to Rockland Trust in any way impede the ability of this board with respect to future transfer to another owner?
No, I'd say it doesn't. It's actually fairly common. It does, and my brother can correct me if I'm wrong, it does if the business goes south and they owe Rockland Trust a lot of money, it does give Rockland Trust kind of some rights to use that license to try to get it back, but no one else could use that license unless they're passed by this board and the ABCC. So it's not like Rockland Trust could go out and give it to anybody.
Find their own, yeah. Okay, yep.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Take a motion?
Quick, it's a
Oh,
public hearing, so I just want to
sorry,
see if
right,
there's
forgot about
anybody
that part, sorry.
here from the public that has any questions or comments. A sparse crew, so don't see that, so I would entertain a motion.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You want to do it? All right.
You go ahead.
I think we have two motions here, so let's hit one at a time.
I move to approve the request to transfer a Section 15 all alcohol license from LM&D Corp. DBA Westborough Cork and Grain at 2 West Main Street to, sorry, take my glasses off, Bapa Ramdev Inc., DBA Westborough Liquors at 2 West Main Street, naming Coxa Patel, hopefully I said that correctly, as manager of record.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor? It's 4-0, 4 being present. Is there a second motion here?
I'll move to approve the request of Bapa Ramdev Inc., DBA, Westborough Liquors at 2 West Main Street to pledge their inventory and pledge their liquor license to Rockland Trust Company.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions on that? Okay, all those in favor? It's 4-0, 4 being present. And as the board knows, just one final thing. First of all, as Select Board Member Marshall said, welcome to town. We appreciate you being here, and good luck. And it's great to hopefully see some vibrancy in that space. It's a long-standing liquor store, package store here in Westborough, and we look forward to you doing business there, and hopefully a very successful business there. The one thing I'd say is, as you know, being tip certified, is that as a town, we take these liquor licenses seriously, and we love to do this and grant them out. We do not like to see you back in because of liquor license violations for serving underage or other violations there. So just a reminder that we do take it very seriously, and appreciate you coming before us, but love to see you here. Congratulations on it. Congratulations on our motion and doing business. And we hope to see you in your business, but not back in front of us because of a violation. So thank you very much.
We hope not.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Take a motion to close the public hearing?
Please.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, public hearing is closed. Okay, next item on the agenda is a lease agreement with Civic Kitchen and Drink at 121 West Main Street.
Mr. Chair, if I can
Yes.
just ask, those were the two things that I know I was here for, unless you would like me to stay for anything else.
No, you are free to go.
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here.
Not that I didn't enjoy myself.
You're welcome to
Our job is to save the town money, so thank you for being here.
Okay, my pleasure.
Please spend it
And
wisely.
I'll actually be seeing you next Monday, because
Yes, you will. Thank
Sharon
you.
has a conflict, so I'll be there for the meeting.
Town meeting.
Oh,
Okay.
Very
we'll
good.
see you for a long time then.
Yeah.
All right.
She always brings a bag of candy, so make sure
Yeah,
that
right.
comes with you.
The good stuff.
Okay, good night.
Good evening. Sorry for making us wait, Tom.
That's okay.
Do you want to?
Kim,
Sure.
I think I'm going to have Kimberly will debrief.
Yes.
So the board has information in its packet regarding the request that Mr. Oliveri is making of the town tonight. We've been working, this issue goes back to April. There is some history in your packet that I can provide some of the highlights, or maybe they're lowlights on. But the request before you tonight is to allow currently there is, Mr. Oliveri holds the lease for Civic Kitchen and Drink, which is located down at the Westborough Golf Club, and he is seeking to cease restaurant operations for the remainder of the lease, which goes through March 1st of 2023. to allow for some construction work to be completed in the basement. So going back just a little history, in mid-April of this year, there was a plumbing issue in the men's restroom in the restaurant on the first floor that resulted in damage to ceiling tiles in the basement. And that is the area, unfortunately, in the basement where there was food storage, cold storage, dry storage, as well as food prep area. And based on the requirements of the food code, it's not just the tiles that were damaged that need to be repaired, it's a more extensive replacement of the entire ceiling area. Included in your memo is a picture of what that looks like today. This is a significant amount of work. At the time that the plumbing issue happened, the town reached out to our insurer. It is our building. We opened a claim, started the process, which included a general contractor being assigned, and pretty quickly we understood the extent of the work. While the restaurant was closed initially, it did reopen with the addition of a refrigerated trailer, which many people have seen in the parking lot, to allow for that food storage. As we moved into May and June, we continued to work with the general contractor. Ultimately, our insurer hired an engineering firm to make sure that, because of the extent of the work, that we were, all of the code compliance issues were being addressed. And at that point, I think it was early June, when we were hearing it was a 3-month repair timeline. In discussions with Mr. Oliveri, we ultimately arrived at an idea of him being able to remain open during the busy season of the golf course during the summer, and then to close the restaurant. He proposed the end of October, which would hopefully leave us sufficient time for the repairs to be done. A new RFP to be issued. As I mentioned, the current lease agreement ends on March 1st. So the town's intention all along was to issue an RFP for that subsequent lease. I know this is a lot of information, but Mr. Oliveri has expressed his intention. He will be responding to the RFP and hopes to continue to operate there. So the request before you tonight is to merely suspend the provision of the lease that requires him to have the restaurant be open, but maintain the balance of the lease provisions, and including storage of his equipment, tables, chairs, all of those types of things, while the construction work is going on, which we don't expect to be, because that work is in the basement. That should all be fine. But tonight's request is for the board to authorize the suspension of restaurant service.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And now, is there a specific date? Is it effective tonight, effective?
No, October 30th.
Okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you. Anything further?
She pretty much summed it all up.
Perfect. Any questions
Yeah.
on the board?
Yeah, Kim, just, so first of all, appreciate the thoroughness of the information in our packet. It was very helpful to understand kind of how we arrived at tonight. So what I thought I heard you say was ideally this is a 3-month project. Now in construction, it's probably longer than that, but if it were 3 months, that brings us before, I thought, the March, right? November, December, January.
It
So
does.
would the, stars align and the work is done, would the expectation be for 2 months? It would be a restart of the business in the middle of the winter? I'm just trying to be practical.
If I get the bid, yes. If I don't think I'll be opening for 2 months.
Right. So, but when would we award?
Well, we're still working through the timeline of that RFP.
Okay,
Okay. Now that, once this, we're sort of taking these action steps, so
Yeah.
once this happens, circling back as a 3-month project, but understanding when everyone's going to get started.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so still shooting for that March 1st
Okay.
timeline, but certainly we'll have to work through that when we develop the RFP.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that.
Well, if it's 3 months too, November, December, it would really be 1 month, I think.
Right.
February.
Well, that's right, because
Hopefully it
it's
would be done
on
quicker,
March
but
1. Right.
could take longer, but
Yeah,
okay.
okay. And that would impact the startup of the RFP anyway, the timeline. Yep, okay.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Sure. I move that, oops, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
I move that the board assent to the lessee Peppercorns Park Avenue Grill and Bar, Inc.'s request to suspend restaurant operations under Section 8 of the lease for the remainder of the lease term, which expires on March 1st, 2023, in light of the ongoing construction work at the property, provided that the lessee must be available to move any furniture and equipment located in the leased premises as necessary to accommodate the construction work. All other terms and conditions of the lease shall remain in effect.
Second.
If she put anything in there about it, just because we're making the motion tonight, that it's really effective as of October 30th? We
Just
add
to be
that
sure.
So-
Yeah.
Be sure, so you can stay in operation till
Just to
then.
be effective October 30th, 2022.
Suspended effective October 30th.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, second,
perfect.
as amended.
Any other further comments or questions? All those in favor? It's 4-0, 4 being present.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And apologize for our delay in making you wait.
Yeah.
Okay, next we bounced around here, I think if I look at this correctly, item 8.
Yep.
Preparation for fall town meeting.
Yep, so just updates related to Fall Town Meeting. Under that, Waka Robinson did meet today, related to Article 18 and the purchase of Zero Ruggles. They did vote to authorize the walk-up paying half the cost, so $167,000 out of the Waka Robinson Fund. There were certainly questions about how much of the property was going to be held by the Conservation Commission and how it was being protected. And so an understanding that more than half of the acreage is going to the Conservation Commission. They did move forward with the vote. Just as an aside, part of the motion was also to investigate ways to make sure that all the land under the Conservation Commission is held for conservation in perpetuity, even beyond the confines of Article 97. So Chris Allen has talked to Tim Buckaloo, and they might explore that in preparation for annual town meeting with the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Can I ask, I thought Chapter 97 was in perpetuity. How do you go beyond?
Well, so Article 97 could be, the protections could be revoked with a 2/3 vote of the select board, 2/3 vote of
state
town
legis-
meeting, and 2/3 vote of the
Oh.
legislature.
Oh,
So that was just part of the discussion, and I just wanted to put it out
So
there because I know they were
perpetuity.
concerned.
It's a pretty tall,
Pretty tall order.
I
But I think
mean-
it is the intent of this board and the whole thing that
Yes.
that portion that would be there is for
Right.
the reason we're interested in purchasing is for conservation and perpetuity.
Right.
So-
And that's how the motion will
And
be
you portrayed
drafted.
that to them.
Okay.
Yes,
as well.
yep, and
Okay.
it's, the notes are on the A&R plan. My understanding is that the planning board is gonna meet ahead of town meeting to sign the A&R. I do have, I have contracted with Ty and Bond to perform the Phase 1 assessment, as we've done before as part of our due diligence. So they'll be moving forward with that. That will not be done in advance of town meeting, but in advance of the board closing on the property.
great.
Perfect.
That's excellent. Thank you to them.
And then the only other update for Article, Article 8, the police department budget adjustment. Currently, the article says a sum of money, so the motion will be for raise and appropriate for $21,838. And the Advisory Finance Committee did have that number last night when they voted their support of the article.
And remind me, did we not vote on this one because we didn't know the number?
Correct. I don't think you voted on Seal.
I don't think, but I wasn't there for that.
Would you like
Is
to
it in
just
the book?
make sure?
Just to make sure, and assuming under this motion that we can make this vote. We have the number now.
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
Right, we have the number.
So I guess what I'm saying, there's no reason to wait. Might as well ask for a motion to support Article 8 in the amount of the $21,838. Is that what you said?
Yep.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, any questions or all those in favor? It's 4-0, so our vote of support for that article.
Great. And then also Article 30, related to the Hastings school project. The school committee intends to bring forward a motion that limits the expansion of scope to ADA design, which is what was discussed with this board.
And have they met with Advisory Finance Committee?
They did. So they met with the Advisory Finance Committee following this, and then following this last meeting, then they had the school committee meeting, and then last night Advisory Finance Committee met again and voted. And they voted to support, with majority in favor of support. I think there were 2 that voted no.
6-2, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
6-2.
Okay.
So those
So
are
again, this is
updates.
one that we have not voted on.
Right, so you can still wait until
Right.
the motion is made.
Yeah,
on
let's
town
wait
meeting
until we see
floor.
the
Yep.
motion.
Yep.
I just, we don't have the full
Yeah.
motion, so, yeah.
They're usually
Great.
long anyway.
Yes, exactly.
So let's,
Perfect.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I will be putting together the motions, and then the article statements and the speaker list. So if there's any in particular that you would like to present, just let me know. And I think that's,
Perfect.
Thanks.
I think that's all we have, except that I did send out, and the Finance Committee book is being completed, and so I did send to the board for awareness, the update to the average single-family
Yes.
increase, and so at this point, I'm just trying to find it.
Which was better than expected. Still high.
Right,
But
so
much
that
better than
number,
expected.
so the number as of Friday was updated to an increase of $781.20 for the average single family.
And that is if everything that's on the warrant is voted.
That's inclusive of all the raise and appropriate articles, yes.
781.23.
781.20.
20.
Say it, what, 7 what?
781.20. So I did send
Yeah, yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
Christy, I'm not sure if you saw my email earlier. I was wondering if, and I might be too late for the book.
Yeah, you are too late for the book.
Damn.
The book went to the publisher today.
All right, never mind. Well, I was asking to see, since we put in the book what the impact is the average residential, I was also asking to see if we could have it for the average business, to understand the impact to them as well. I think it's a good data point. We should
That's a good
understand.
data point.
Next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think we typically is that kind of a request we would discuss at finance team, just to kind of think through what makes
That's a
sense.
good one.
But, certainly for annual town meeting, I think that's,
Yep.
So I haven't even passed it along yet, so I just got it.
That's all right. I know I was probably late, but
It's on the list now.
Yep, so I think that's it. And then we'll post a meeting in advance of town meeting at 6:30 on Monday.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anything else of note coming out of Advisory Finance Committee? Anything that was passed along to us that you know of?
What,
I would,
like,
well, there's a vote not in support of the library. 6-2, right?
yes.
Or
Yeah,
2-6.
a vote to defeat.
Vote to defeat.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have all their,
Yep.
It's 6-2 to defeat.
Okay. But nothing that was passed back to us for, anything they were looking for from us that you know of?
not that
That
I'm
you've heard
aware
of,
of.
okay.
I mean, the chair of the finance committee did make a statement last night asking for some more sort of strategic planning around the Hastings project, which the superintendent was also on the call with me and, certainly open to, but wanting to get that first data point of the design costs, so.
Okay.
So I expect that might be discussed at the finance team.
Perfect, thanks. Any other questions on this agenda item? Okay, item 9, Select Board and Town Manager Goals Status Update.
So I provided you with a status update on goals, because we're coming to the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year. So I'll just go through them quickly and just stop me if you want to discuss any of them. So first were the select board goals. As a reminder, these goals were developed in April for the fiscal 23, so the current fiscal year. So the sale of the Regal Cinema, so the board has received the responses to the RFP and opened them on July 25th, and we did the interviews, and now the board can move toward making a decision, likely this fall is what I put.
It's on agenda for our executive session this evening.
Right. We have the leases for the Fay Mountain Tower and also the Country Club. Town Council's reviewed both of those, so we just spoke about the Country Club, so that's coming up on at the end of, or March 1st of 2023, so we'll be working on that. But we've already started sort of developing different parameters that we want to include based on discussions with the Facilities Department and also Recreation. And obviously all of that will come to you for final approval. And then the tower lease doesn't expire until 2025, but we need to consider how a subsequent contract might be structured. So that's something that we need to do, but has been put probably towards the later part of the fiscal year. The American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA fund application, the board and the Advisory Finance Committee did vote to recommend and then award the majority of the funds that we expect to receive for ARPA on May 31st. And then we did have a follow-up meeting to award Public Radio Infrastructure Project and then also the splash pad. So following those meetings, we had a balance of $167,783 that had not been allocated. Just so everyone is aware, Owen's working on putting all of this information on the website so that people can sort of follow the ARPA project. Shelby's smiling because she's going to ask me.
I love the planning. That's awesome. And yes, I would have asked.
So one of the things that you heard at the budget summit is that the splash pad, we had run into some issues. I think it's equally, we also, I wouldn't say they're issues, but we also got money from the state, so it sort of changed that balance number. So we got $40,500 from the state as an earmark for 2 of the fire projects that were awarded. And then we're still continuing to watch the economic development bill, which has in it $90,000 for wayfinding. So both of those things would change that remaining balance. We're also still working through the splash pad project that obviously would come back to the board. That'll come back to the board regardless of whether we want to move forward with the $275,000, because we want to make sure everyone's aware of how that project is moving forward or not. And then the last thing that we're waiting for is the MassWorks money, which is the $250,000 that the board had awarded as a match for the Otis Street Route 9 MassWorks project. We do expect to hear soon about the receipt of that grant. So that's probably our most concrete timeline in terms of understanding what's available and what's not with ARPA. And so after we hear whether or not we receive that grant, the finance team, which had started the process previously, will come back together to talk about the process going forward, and then we'll make recommendations as we did before. The evaluation of waste program. So at the select board meeting on May 24th, you created the waste management task force presented their findings. They were a subcommittee of the Board of Health. They disbanded, and then the select board created the Waste Management Exploratory Committee to review town waste programs. So that committee was seated in June, and then you just approved the charter of that committee. And so they've set up a timeline to come back with a recommendation in July of 23. Communication education related to taxation, I've noted as complete as we're working forward towards that November 22nd tax classification hearing. That was also a goal of the town manager. So I think between the staff and then the guiding questions from the select board, we were able to present sort of a series of meetings for the community, and also identify several educational materials that we publicized widely. And then the Economic Development Forum, we are working toward an initial presentation to the board at the November 2nd meeting, where the EDC coordinator was prepared to present the work of the EDC and the department, specifically going back to when you created that goal, we had discussion about the EDSAT. So he's going to give sort of an update of what we've done since the 2013 EDSAT, which was the Economic Development Self-Assessment Tool and Report that was done in 2013, and then talk about some goals and initiatives. And so that's really the first part of that, and then we can move forward with how we want to go from there. For town manager goals, the senior needs assessment, Kim has taken the lead on that project. So there's a steering committee that's been created to help identify individuals for key interviews. Several of those key interviews, maybe all of them, I'm not sure, have been completed. And then also identify individuals for focused groups, and they also reviewed the survey questions. So both Kim and Shelby sit on that steering committee, can provide additional information. But I know the survey is anticipated to be distributed this month. Okay. Citizen Leadership Academy is a goal. So we held the Citizen Leadership Academy in 2015, which was a 10-week program. It's the only one that we've held. So in addition to looking at that structure and that syllabus, our management analyst is pulling similar programs in other communities to try to look at what other people do and prepare for that program. Development of the strategic plan process. Again, so in 2018, we created the strategic plan. The plan will be 5 years old in September of 23, which is fiscal 24. So in this fiscal year, we're looking at developing that internal process. The original plan was done with the help of a consultant, but it also included the development of a mission and vision. And so we expect that this can be done internally. So we're looking at how other communities are doing that as opposed to asking for money for a consultant. So we'll be prepared to do that in fiscal 24. The recommended schedule for long-term capital needs, that's something we've been working towards for a couple of years now. That's going to be taken up in the second quarter of fiscal 23 after the capital plan requests, including the long-term requests, have been submitted. Kim leads that effort and has already sent out requests to the departments asking for both their 5-year capital plan, but also those long-term projects. The BWALT project implementation progress, in addition to what I mentioned earlier, which is that we're going to submit for capital, we're going to submit to the capital plan. We're also working with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission to discuss their role in supporting us in our effort to present the project to the community. So they're working with us on digestible sort of materials as opposed to just only having the feasibility study as a resource. And so we expect to do a community meeting, as I mentioned in the meeting where we talked about implementation, in January of this year. Tax classification education, again, that's listed as complete. I spoke about that already. And then land prioritization. We have not started this goal yet, but it will involve the review of the open space and recreation plan as well as follow up with the land prioritization committee.
Perfect. Any questions, or thank you for the update on that?
Sure.
No.
We're making progress really on everything, which is great.
Yes.
Yep.
So,
And I know you'll laugh at this, but will that update be under the selectmen goals at some point, just for the public to review?
Your goals and my goals are listed on the website, and when these update memos are listed underneath them.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
step ahead.
I know. I love it.
Perfect.
Stop asking the question, Shelby.
Well, it's good to keep asking. Okay, item 12, issues and correspondence to the select board. We're 4 minutes ahead, so let's keep it tight.
I'll just quickly, if
Go.
I can, I'll go. So this weekend is the Get Charged Up EV Expo at 2 to 5 o'clock at Otis Street at the Amazon Robotics Building parking lot. I will just let everyone know that there's going to be several people there with tables. And we have over 30 very cool cars registered for the show. People can talk to drivers, take a ride in some of them, and get info about rebates, tax breaks, charging, state programs, and more. So please join. And then just an issue I just want to keep on our radar. I think at the last meeting I mentioned the parking downtown. When we get to, at some point, I'm hoping that we can have a hearing or whatever the official requirement is to have that discussion about the downtown parking situation.
Specifically
Sorry,
the,
Specifically the 1 hour parking.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Should have been more specific.
Nope, I remember you saying that now, but you had to remind me. I'm getting old. Thank you.
When did you, are you targeting that for, or did you not say?
I did not say,
Okay.
I'm looking for the board to,
It's time for discussion. I think,
Well,
I'm looking for some guidance into what the
Well-
process would be, and
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking, because it requires a public hearing. So you would have to have a public hearing,
Notice.
right?
yep. So maybe,
It,
can I ask?
Or you could initiate the discussion. So
was just, yeah.
we have the traffic rules and regulations, and the police department has gone through it. So there are several updates that we need to make.
Mhm.
But this obviously would be probably in addition to that. So you could have the discussion about what you want to put forward, and then we could hold the public hearing.
Could
Yeah,
we,
it sounds like that, because I'm not entirely sure, and
Okay.
maybe have an idea of what is 1 hour parking, what's not. And maybe, Patrick, if you want to work with Christie and Kim as to what the full topic is to discuss, we bring it to
Sure.
the board for discussion whenever it fits on an agenda in the next
Okay.
month or so, and then from that, we'll go to the public hearing stuff. So just an education as to what you're looking for.
Sure.
I think with that would be interesting,
Maybe a plan.
yeah.
and would that, and so that
Well-
would our discussion then include, if I understood correctly, the sort of the internal work that's been done? Like, so an update on that, discussion, questions, and then determination of our next steps?
I think we have to have a public hearing for all of that.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the initial meeting would be for you as a board to decide if you want to make a change to the traffic rules and regulations, and then the public hearing. So
Right, but
we
in order
can
to make.
provide that.
Yeah, in order to make that kind of decision of do we want to go forward, I would imagine some of the work that's been done, we would want to hear
Understand.
that.
So it
That's
sounds like
all.
there's some stuff that's been done, but then there's the new stuff that,
Right,
Patrick,
so
so we
nothing
wanna
that's
include
been
that.
done is related to changing the.
Right.
the 1 hour,
The
Yeah,
1
yeah,
hour,
yeah,
right.
no, I understand.
Right.
so.
And so, before scheduling the public hearing, do we need a plan of what the changes to parking would be?
Right.
Yes,
That's what you're
plus
saying.
the other things.
Plus the
So
other
it'll come to
things.
us, educate, and then we would,
Okay.
as we
make a
determine
proposal
forward,
basically that would then go to public hearing.
go to public hearing that we'd have, that would then allow us to implement.
Yep.
So you probably have some time, because you would probably hold the public hearing. At this point, I would think you would hold the public hearing after the first of the year.
Yes.
Christie, you said it was a while since we last had a hearing on this topic. Is there, and there was also a parking study done downtown, I think, in the last,
Mhm.
5 years or so? Is
Yeah.
that something I can get,
That's on the website.
yeah, okay, I'll look on the website.
I would say work with.
But we don't, just so
I
you,
just want to understand it better.
right, I mean, when
So-
we hold the public hearings, it's to make an amendment. So the last one that I
Right.
can remember was when you made the road by Yulman's one way.
One way,
So that's required a public hearing. So,
Okay.
so it's not sort of it's not always a comprehensive look at the traffic rules.
Oh,
and
okay.
regulations.
Typically what we've done is, yeah, it's because of something that's come up one
Okay.
way. We made one way on Franklin Street a number of years ago by the Armstrong School.
Yeah, and just to be
A lot
clear,
of
the only
times
reason why,
that, yeah.
the only reason why I bring this forward is I've had a number of residents who've questioned it, so
I think it's great.
So-
It's perfect.
I don't have any
No,
data.
I'm just asking,
I
no, just to work through so we can put it on the agenda. If you want to work ahead of time, I
Yep.
think we have some time over the next
Yeah.
November, December to pull it forward, and then probably would be at our meeting, and then, as you said, Christie, probably a January public hearing
Yeah.
sometime around that, first of the year, beginning of the year. Great. Anything else? Alan?
I was gonna talk about parking, so, nothing else for me.
Same topic?
Same topic.
Wow. I haven't heard
So
anything
you
from
wanted to-
anybody. It's
okay.
you. I think they're talking to, I think they're talking to each other. Only thing real quick that I had was just a reminder for folks for the Westborough Good Scout dinner coming up on November 1st. This year, our Westborough Good Scout honorees are Superintendent of Schools Amber Bach and Karen Henderson, the Director of Westborough TV. So encourage anybody to attend. It'll be at the Doubletree Hotel. Always a great event recognizing significant contributors to the Westborough community. So hopefully folks can attend that evening. Anybody that's interested, www.mayflowerbsa.org can find the information on the evening. That's all that I had.
Okay, a couple items. I just want to remind folks just to plan ahead that there will be a Veterans Day celebration, so just mark your calendars for that. And I do believe, I I believe there's a luncheon at the senior center as well, so refer to your senior scene newsletter, news packet, to recognize our veterans. That's always a really special event. In keeping with our seniors, 2 items. I want to remind folks that the senior center is offering transportation to town meeting. So please call the senior center to sign up. That number is 508-366-3000. And they'll be happy to work with you on that.
Can I just jump in there?
Yes.
Just, forgot to say it. Just a reminder that town meeting is this coming Monday night
Right.
at 7 p.m. So call now so you can get on the list to attend on
Absolutely.
Monday night with a strong chance that we will be continuing it into Tuesday evening.
Right. So if you're wondering what you might be doing on Monday and Tuesday night, now you have plans.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Hang out with
fantastic.
all of us at the high school.
Right, right. Christy already touched on this, but just to remind really the public that the senior needs assessment will be going out. There will be a reminder that folks will get a postcard being mailed out the week of on 10/19 thereabouts, October 19th. That will just remind folks that, hey, you'll be getting a survey, and then households with those over 55, individuals over 55 will receive a survey, and that will be mailed, but folks can complete the survey online, and surveys will be mailed out on the 26th of October. Christy mentioned, and Kim did, that the key interviews with town staff have been completed. Focus groups have met, pulling in lots of different folks representing our community. I think there were 3, right, there's a total of 7 focus groups, but 3 have met, right? So those will continue. And then we're looking for a great turnout, in terms of responses to the survey. So definitely want everyone to encourage their friends, family, and neighbors to complete that. It's an important investment. Just for the board's benefit, the Hockomock Pond Reuse Committee continues to meet. Actually, we'll be meeting tomorrow. We do have the study back from the licensed site professional, Ty Bond, that the board kind of recommended and approved. And so we have some questions for them. So that work continues. And I just want to remind folks that the public library is having its final info session tomorrow night at the library from 7 to 8 p.m. To learn about the library project. And don't forget, voting is starting now, and I'll just put a plug in for the Community Preservation Act, question 5, that's on the ballot, that the town meeting previously voted to support putting it on the ballot, and a vote yes is to add it to our bylaws, and a vote no is to not. So, vote.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Okay, that is it. And Sean's not here. Is someone going to make the motion on Sean's behalf for executive session? Alan is going to do it for us.
It's a long one.
Yes.
So I move that we enter executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the clerical union, under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, with respect to litigation strategy regarding the residences at Westborough Station, Northland TPLP LLC at 100 Charlestown Meadows Drive, regarding the enforcement of affordable housing. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate at 231 Turnpike Road. And under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to act under the authority of the Select Board to approve executive session minutes of September 27th, 2022.
And I declare that an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the board's bargaining and litigating position, and that the board will not be reconvening in an open session at the conclusion of our executive session. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote.
Welch, yes.
Edinburgh, yes?
Johnson, yes.
Marshall, yes.
So we are now entering into executive session. Thank you, Westborough TV, as always.